Hi everyone, I'm so glad that you have joined us again. We are journeying through our Exploring Ruth series. We're on Ruth chapter 3, and really these little talks are by way of getting us started, showing us a little bit of background, maybe pulling a few things out of the chapter to get some conversation and discussion started. And so with that in mind, I've got three things from Ruth chapter 3 that I would like us to consider. Three things that will help us as we journey on that life of faith. Here's the first one that I see out of Ruth chapter 3. Number one, we've got to take the step. Take the step. So as we know and we've discussed, Ruth and Naomi are vulnerable widows. There's no social security. There's no other avenue for them to be looked after. They are really in trouble as widows in that society. They're on their own to a large extent. We've seen how they have received charity and help from Boaz, but largely they're exposed, they're on their own. And so really they need another step. They need something in. Now, there was a system in place within Israel that if a wife became a widow, that the next male in the family would be able to take her on. And so really, if there was a brother, it would be the brother. If not the brother, it would be, and there would be a list of what we would call kinsman redeemers. My Bible actually calls it a guardian redeemer, but kinsman redeemers. And that's this idea of someone who would be able to take them in and provide them with family, provide them with protection, provide them with a space to live and that sense of belonging, so they're not exposed and vulnerable out in the world on their own. Boaz was on that list. He was clearly in some way related to Elimelech. And it was also clear that there were others on the list and people who hadn't yet stepped forward to offer up their services. However, it seems that love was in the air for Ruth and for Boaz. Boaz had clearly captured something of Ruth's heart, and it definitely seems that Ruth has definitely captured Boaz's eye at the very, very least. And so love is in the air. There's some form of attraction, and so Naomi becomes the instigator. My generation will get this quip, but move over Cilla Black. She is stepping in. She wants a hat for the wedding, and so she tells Ruth, here's some of the things that you can do, and she gives Ruth some advice. Now, whenever we read through Ruth chapter 3, we haven't a clue what's going on, because it seems that this is something that's very cultural, something that's very not done today. This wasn't a matter of, hey, go and take him out to Starbucks, buy him a coffee and see how it progresses. This is something completely different. But Ruth does what Naomi tells her to do. And she goes along while he's sleeping, and she uncovers his feet and she sits at his feet. Now, this is a big step. She's waiting for him to awaken, for them to have this conversation. It seems that drawing the blanket off his feet is some sort of a request, some sort of a making herself available. And so she's taken a step of faith, because like anybody that's ever asked anyone out, that there's an opportunity for rejection. There's an opportunity for them to say no. There's an opportunity for all of the hope that has built up to suddenly come crashing down. And so she took the step. She takes a step of faith, but she was willing to try. And I think that's really beautiful. She was willing to try. She was willing to take the step. As we discuss today, I wonder, are there some examples in your past where you have taken a step? Now here I'm not necessarily thinking of romantically. I'm thinking, are there moments in your life where you took a step of faith, where you knew that you needed something, or you knew that you wanted God to help you in something, but you knew you also needed to take that step into that? It'd be great to hear some stories of steps of faith within the rooms over this week. But let me ask you this as well. Within our lives, because we live by faith, we journey from faith to faith, we're always progressing and moving in faith. Is there any steps of faith that you need to take, even today or tomorrow or in the near future? Is there something that you just need that encouragement? Take the step. Why don't you talk to each other about some of those steps and what some of that might look like? The second thing I want to have a look at is this: make the ask. Make the ask. You see, let me take you back into the story of Ruth and Boaz. And in Ruth chapter 2, we see that Boaz prays this prayer. It's like a blessing over Ruth. And he says this in Ruth chapter 2, verse 12. He says, "May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel." Now listen to this bit: "Under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Now here, if we go into this part of the story, into Ruth chapter 3, here's what happens. Ruth basically asks Boaz to be the answer to his own prayer. He has said, "May you find refuge and may God put his wing over you." Now here's what she asks him. This is beautiful. Whenever he wakes up, he says, "Who are you?" he asked. She says, "I am your servant Ruth." This is verse 9 of chapter 3. "I am your servant Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian or a kinsman redeemer of our family." Now see where it says that part, spread a corner of your garment? It's exactly the same wording as the blessing that Boaz has given her. Whenever he said, "May God cover you," she said, "Will you cover me? Will you become the answer to your own prayer? Will you become the answer to your own prayer?" And it's a reminder to us that prayer is a companion in life as we journey through. Prayer is something that we, as Christians, are meant to take on. We're meant to pray about all things, pray without ceasing, pray continually. And here's the thing: God's really interested in the minutiae of our lives. He's interested in the things that we're interested in. And we want to come and we want to ask God to move. We want to ask God to step into our lives. We believe that God hears and answers prayer. And we believe that he encourages us to persevere in prayer. We're encouraged in Matthew 7, ask, seek, knock. Ask and keep on asking, seek and keep on seeking, knock and keep on knocking. And then what Jesus says is that when you ask, you'll receive. When you knock, that door will be open to you. So there's this perseverance, there's this journey of prayer that we're called into. We need to learn to make the ask. God, would you step in? God, would you do? God, would you answer these prayers for us? And the reality is, the beautiful thing is that we're reminded in one of Peter's letters, we're reminded this, that he says, "Cast your care on him because he cares for you." God cares about the stuff we care about. And so he wants us to bring these things, whatever it is on our hearts, to him. Why? Because he cares for us. So let me ask you then, what are you praying for? What are the things in your life that you're asking God to step into? You're asking God for answers for? You're asking for provision for? What are those things? What are the casting of our cares on him? Because he cares for us. What are we doing in regards of that? But here's the little bit on the end of that. He might even ask us to be the answer to our own prayers. You see, we may be asking God to bless our family, and in some ways God might ask us to be some of the answer to that, where we are a blessing. We might be asking God for provision, and he might ask us at some stage to step in. We might be asking God to do something, and we are, as a church, we're asking God to come and move in our city and to do mighty things in our streets or towns right across the board. We're asking God to move. Well, maybe, just maybe, he will ask us to be the answer to our own prayers. But let me encourage you, keep making the ask, because God hears and God answers prayer. The third and final thing is this: live the life. Live the life. Okay, so yeah, great talking about faith. Take the step of faith. Great talking about prayer. We believe all of that. But actually, here comes a challenge. We've got to live the life. We have to live the life. If we're going to be people of faith, and we're going to see our prayers answered and live this life with God, then we need to be people of character, of integrity, of honesty. People who, when we say one thing, we do that same thing. People who live the life, that we don't just talk it, we live it, we walk it. And that's what we're called to do. That's what we're called to be. And that's what we see in this chapter. We see actually both Ruth and Boaz are people of noble character. Look, and I'm not just saying it, look at what the Bible says then. And see how Boaz's response to Ruth. Look at verse 11. So it says there, "And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people in my town know that you are a woman of noble character." Ruth's a woman of noble character. There's an honesty, a truthfulness, an integrity about her life, and people have witnessed it. People have seen it. She's living the life. But it doesn't just stop with Ruth. We see it in Boaz also. We see that he can be a man who's trusted. And look what Naomi says in verse 18 about Boaz. She says, "Then Naomi said, 'Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today.'" There's an element that Ruth and Naomi, they know Boaz is going to do what he says he's going to do. He's not just going to talk the talk, he's going to walk the walk. He's going to fulfill his promises. The Word of God's really clear on this. Jesus says it in the Sermon on the Mount, and James repeats it in James chapter 5, verse 12, where it tells us that we're not to swear by anything. It's not, "No, I promise you, or make some sort of, your word's meant to be your word. Your yes is meant to be yes. Your no is meant to be no. We're meant to be people of integrity, that what is here is also what is in here. What comes out of here represents what is also in here, that we are people who live the life." You see, I believe that this story is a beautiful one because there's an innocence, there's an honesty, there's an integrity. There are people who are living the life. They're living it out. They're people of noble character. There's no falsehood. There's no messing around or messing with each other's feelings or messing each other about. There's no false agendas. There's no taking advantage of one another. It's wholesome. And it's wholesome because it comes from a place of integrity, a place of honesty, where yes is yes, no is no, where they're living the life. And that's the challenge for us. So those are the three things that I see that jump out at me out of chapter 3 in the book of Ruth. If we're going to really live this life for God, then there are a few things that we need to step into. We need to take that step. We need to make the ask and be people of prayer. But we also need to live the life, be people of honesty, integrity, and of noble character. May God bless you as you unpack and you journey through Ruth chapter 3. God bless.